U ovoj emisiji TV Justice donosimo priču o takozvanom zakonu o stranim agentima. U Rusiji se ovim zakonom kažnjavaju i zatvaraju mediji, aktivisti, ali i građani koji se usude suprotstaviti vlastima. Naša ekipa otputovala je u Gruziju gdje je nedavno usvojen sličan zakon, kako bismo razgovarali sa onima koji se najviše plaše ovog zakona. U Gruziji desetine hiljada građana preko mjesec dana drže proteste protiv ovog zakona, dok u Bosni i Hercegovini gdje vlasti Republike Srpske predlažu sličan zakon, to kao da ne dotiče nikoga.
It's ridiculous. Because I got the status of foreign agent because of my lessons, and that was like a shock for me because I am not a journalist.
Georgia becomes a state like Russia, or maybe a state like North Korea, or maybe like a state like Saudi Arabia.
If we don't come here today, then tomorrow we'll wake up in Russia.
This is not just about the Russian law in Georgia. This is not just about Bosnia, Moldova, Ukraine. It's about defeating the Russian evil empire and defeating Buddhism in general.
They followed me. They have these paramilitary groups threatening people, eating people.
They want to put Georgia alongside Russia, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, and this kind of union which tries to rebuild the Soviet Union again.
U glavnom gradu Gruzije naša ekipa upoznaje profesoricu koja je izbjegla iz Rusije nakon što je postala jedna od prvih osoba koje su proglašene stranim agentom. Na ovoj listi našla se zbog svog feminističkog i antiratnog aktivizma, a uskoro je postala i žrtva policijske represije. 3 godine nakon što je u Tbilisiju pronašla utočište, sada ponovno mora pronaći novi dom, jer su gruzijske vlasti odlučile da uvedu sličan zakon. Za Detektor govori o traumama iz Rusije, te kako žali što mora napustiti nove prijatelje i svoju budućnost potražiti u nekoj drugoj zemlji.
I published 2 books for kids. It was feminist fairy tales. I'm an editor of this project and it was kind of international project. But now I cannot publish books for kids and I cannot teach. If I stay in Russia, I cannot continue my work with the kids. And this is my profession. It's ridiculous. Because I got the status of foreign agent because of my lessons. So my money from abroad, my financial support, as an agent, was the payment for my lessons. I was not just a teacher of Russian language. I was a teacher for foreigners. So my students were from France, for example, like French people who lived in St. Petersburg. Also my students were from Central Asia, Syria, Afghanistan, because I worked in the Red Cross with refugees. And that was like a shock for me because I am not a journalist. I don't work in NGO. I am still a teacher.
Nakon što je u Rusiji stavljena na listu stranih agenata, Dariju, njenu porodicu i njihov stan, policija nekoliko puta pretresa i oduzima joj sve uređaje na kojima bi mogle biti pohranjene dodatne informacije o njenom radu.
I don't want to tell them about the people who are connected to me. So I will not write the name of my students in the list. Of course, I don't do it. And I also was arrested a few times in Russia just because of my activism. And that was a lot of stress for me and for my kids. And my son also was kind of arrested with his father. So we decided to move. For my kids, it was a big problem. So first time we moved to Georgia and we were in the bus. It was like some excursion or something like that. And my son saw the police car on the street and he immediately went under the seat in the bus just because he was, okay, this is police, so I need to hide. I think mostly this law, it's a cruel thing because it's kind of cut you from your life. So you are kind of toxic for your relatives, for your friends. But unfortunately, now I see almost the same in Georgia, the same law, the same escalation, the same atmosphere of fear because of the police violence.
Više od mjesec dana ulice Tbilisija preplavljene su građanima koji protestuju protiv takozvanog Zakona o stranim agentima. Sličan zakon danas predlažu i vlasti u Republici Srpskoj, a prvi put predložen je i usvojen u Rusiji. Ljudi sa kojima smo razgovarali na protestima kažu nam kako su došli tu da se izbore za svoju slobodu. Dok takve proteste ne možemo vidjeti na ulicama Bosne i Hercegovine.
This law is very dangerous for, every person living in Georgia, including juridical people or physical persons. And it's getting really frightening what's happening right now in Georgia, because tomorrow I might also get arrested because I'm standing in here. So basically, this is not something that we will accept.
We are not going to our universities, we are not attending our lectures, because the main battlefield for us and the main lessons to learn today for us is here on the Rustaveli Avenue, because we cannot achieve anything if we are not part of the European family and we are not as free as we need to be. Because if we go to the universities today and if we don't come here today, then tomorrow we will wake up in Russia and we will wake up in a authoritarian regime.
We've seen these methods. It's a typical KGB Russian terror methods, but in this case Georgian authorities have one problem. We are not Russia. The Georgian civil society and Georgian people know the taste of freedom. We know that our independence and freedom is being decided with these protests, and we are sure that Russia would be defeated, and we also, with this fight, together with Ukrainians and other allies of ours, are fighting with Putinism all over the world. This is not just about the Russian law in Georgia, this is not just about Bosnia, Moldova, Ukraine, it's about defeating the Russian evil empire and defeating Putinism in general, and we're sure that we will prevail in that, and the best answer to this is our European integration, which would bring peace and prosperity to all those nations.
Posljednje desetljeće u Gruziji, slično kao i u Bosni i Hercegovini, obilježile su europske integracije. Nakon što je prošle godine zemlja dobila kandidatski status, građani su se nadali boljem životu, a onda su vlasti odlučile usvojiti ruski zakon.
In February 2022, our government decided to shift the policy towards North, because I believe that they decided that Russia would win this war, so we should be on the same board with Russia, not the West, because the West is weak, Ukraine is losing, they are not supporting Ukraine. They captured all the institutions, and very rapidly they started to deliver this Russian-style propaganda, and the final kind of thing was to introduce this so-called Russian law, or the Bill on Foreign Agents, in March last year. We protested and people were outside in the streets, and they did not expect such a huge protest. They decided that if they attack the NGOs, nobody will speak up. However, the real purpose behind this bill was to shift finally the declared purpose of the country to join the EU and NATO, so Euro-Atlantic integration. So this was and is the real purpose of the law.
What was significant after last year's March, it was propaganda from pro-governmental media outlets. They started to cover stories about rich NGOs. There were series about NGOs who were enriched from abroad, that they got a lot of money from Western countries and they don't spend this money for the society.
We know that when this law was adopted in Russia in 2012, the real intentions of the government were not the transparency. Their main goal was to shut down all the critical medias, all the NGOs who might help people, those who speak about the corruption in the government. After several months and years, either these people were killed in Russia or they had to leave the country. We see such trends in many countries around the world, and we call it Russian playbook, when all these authoritarian regimes learned from Russian government how it's better to abolish the groups who are resisting to the democratic development of the countries.
I think there was a push from Russia in countries like Kyrgyzstan, like Bosnia and Herzegovina, like Slovakia, in Georgia. It happened at the same time. In the period of 1 week, all these states initiated or reinitiated this Russian law, this foreign influence agents law.
Profesor Gija Džaparidze sa Univerziteta Gruzije žrtva je policijske represije zbog aktivizma i borbe protiv ovog zakona.
It was an ambushed attack in front of my house, in front of cameras. There is a camera on the top of the entrance door. They followed me. It was planned and organized and implemented, supported by the ruling party and supported by the state security services. They knew all my steps. It was a small gang. They have these paramilitary groups threatening people, beating people. My brother had 3 cases, 3 attempts to beat him or to kill him.
Vlast koja vrši represiju, smatra profesor, predvodi gruzijski biznismen i bivši premijer Bidzina Ivanišvili, koji je trenutno počasni predsjednik vladajuće partije Gruzijski san.
From the very beginning, 2011, when Ivanišvili first appeared with his first statement, for me it was obvious and very clear that the guy who made his fortune in Russia, came from Russia, is the richest guy in this country, typical Russian oligarch, out of sudden decides to enter Georgian politics. I didn't have any doubt that this guy had connections with Russia and that it was very well planned and organized Russian operation.
The Putin's government tries to have corrupt regimes around Russia and, in different countries as well, where then they can successfully influence this government, because when the government is democratic and when there is the checks and balances system, it's very difficult for the countries like Russia to influence these governments.
The Russian imperialism, it was and it is like a cancer. If they have any, open door or not really closed door, they will try to do it again and again and again.
Official statements of the government now clearly demonstrate that they are against the West. They are shifting the country's well-established and historical choice to go towards the West, and they want to put Georgia alongside Russia, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, and this kind of union which tries to rebuild the Soviet Union again, or it's some kind of Soviet Union.
When we speak about this Russian law, it's not only about law. It is about the future of this country, and it is about the future of the Europe. If this law is enacted, the Georgian government will ask from media, from local and international NGOs to be registered as foreign influence agents. The NGO sector decided to say no. They refuse to be registered as foreign influence agents. Who will monitor the next parliamentary elections? If you are not registered as, according to this law, as a foreign influence agent, you will not have right to monitor parliamentary elections.
We have seen an open attack on the West throughout the legislative discussions and the political debate that has accompanied the adoption of this law. Government officials have not minced words in denouncing the West, casting the West as this quote-unquote global war party, wants to start a second front in Georgia, which is a big conspiracy theory that has nothing to do with reality, but what it intends to do is very malicious and very dangerous, and that is to try to cast the West as an adversary rather than as a friend of Georgia. But the Georgian people know full well who friends are and who enemies are. Georgia's biggest adversary is precisely Putin's Russia that has 20% of our country occupied.
Dok građani Gruzije shvataju koliko novi zakon ugrožava njihove slobode i egzistenciju, pred građanima Republike Srpske stoje čak i veći izazovi. Oba zakona su slična, ali dok gruzijsko rješenje predviđa da su strani agenti, nevladine organizacije i mediji čiji prihodi iz inostranstva su veći od 20%, zakon u Republici Srpskoj dosta je neprecizniji i za građane mogao bi biti rigorozniji. Vremenom, oba rješenja mogla bi postati još opasnija kroz eventualne izmjene i dopune, kako je to učinjeno u Rusiji, gdje danas stranim agentima proglašavaju čak i mljekare.
Nama je isto fascinantno kada smo počeli da pratimo situaciju u Gruziji, šta se dešava, nama bi bilo ono kao wow, zašto se ovo ne dešava kod nas.
Ovdje ljudi ne izlaze na ulice ni po mnogo većim pitanjima koji njih lično pogađaju, njihovu svakodnevnicu, dakle istom tom logikom možemo reći da u Parizu imamo proteste zbog poskupljenja goriva, ovdje ih nemamo.
Iako je zakon na entitetskom nivou, moram reći da nisu izuzete ni organizacije, ni pojedinci, ni mediji iz drugog entiteta, koji bi se na bilo koji način kritikovali vlast i dokazivali na nepravilnosti rada trenutne aktualne političke vlasti u Republici Srpskoj. Znači naša vlast uvijek, oni su tempirani, imaju strategiju kako da krenu na nas i saista simbolično ništa nam više nije ostalo nego da sahranimo demokratiju u Bosni i Hercegovini.
Nema se namjera da se osporava javno izražavanje, da se bilo koje dostignute slobode i po Evropskoj konvenciji i po Ustavu Republike Srpske skraćuju, ali možda da kažemo neka vrsta da se razgraniči da li je nešto sponzorisano što širi mržnju, vrijeđa ljude, već ima presude, da li tako nešto da treba da bude, da kažemo, posebno registrovano. Evo, to je bio jedini razlog. Mislim da je jednostavno previše optužujućih tonova bilo prema vladi Republike Srpske kao podnosiocu toga predloga. Naravno, postoji potreba da se na neki način uređuje medijski prostor, a medijski prostor je, da kažemo, usko povezan sa radom nevladnih organizacija, jer mnoge, da kažemo, sponzorišu i kreiraju medijske vijesti.
Ali posljedice stavljanja na listu stranih agenata u Rusiji Darija i njena porodica osjećaju i danas.
If you have any social media, like pages, Telegram, Instagram, YouTube, you have to put the information, the text, before each your publication, each your post, where you say, you mentioned, it's the text about 20 words, that you are foreign agent. And you have to mark all the text you publish. If you don't do it, you also have this fine. You can get these fines. I already have fine. It's 40,000 rubles. It's about something like $400 or something like that. If you already have two fines, the next step is going to be a prison. I think it's about from 2 to 5 years of prison.
Manjinske zajednice koje su i ranije bile žrtve raznih aktivnosti vlasti u Gruziji plaše se nove represije i problema zbog ovog zakona.
Unfortunately, what we face already years, and it's getting more and more intense year by year, is that our government is very actively using homophobia as a tool of spreading hatred and to create the polarization between different groups of society and to create this whole anti-Western propaganda. And they're using homophobia to attack all the groups who are criticizing them, including all civil society, free media, young generation in general who are very actively involved in the protests and so on. And it of course causes lots of threats to specific people, including me. I've been attacked in online area and physically as well. And it's all connected because when the propaganda is started in online platforms, then it goes on in the streets, and then real people who are often also linked to the government, linked to the Orthodox Church and different Russian forces and so on.
The issue of religion was always sensitive in Georgia, and the governments, they were manipulating and speculating with the authority of the dominant religious institution, Georgian Orthodox Church, which is very influential, which has political clout, and it was always used against human rights defenders who might criticize the relationship between the Georgian Orthodox Church and the state. The rights of religious minorities drastically deteriorated during the last years. Maybe the number of hate crimes are not so visible, but we have the cases when Muslims are persecuted, when they're not allowed to build houses of worship and other religious groups. But it's not so visible maybe as the persecution of LGBTQI groups. This is part of larger anti-Western campaign and anti-Western propaganda, because in that narrative, the state appears, the government appears as if they protect national interests or identity and religion because they're fighting with LGBT propaganda.
We gathered in the office and destroyed everything. That included information of our members, queer people who are connected or have been connected with our organization, because we know that if they come to our office, and it can happen today, and check all these documents and so on, they will get all the information of these people and they will use it against them.
Predstavnici vlasti u Gruziji nisu pristali na razgovor o ovom zakonu, a nakon njegovog usvajanja brzo su uslijedile sankcije iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. I drugi zapadni partneri su jasni, zakon je suprotan demokratskim principima i očekujte naše akcije.
European Union position has been loud and clear since the very beginning. We do not consider this law compatible with EU core norms and EU core values, and we have repeatedly asked the ruling majority to withdraw this law. There are several options, and we sincerely hope that finally this law will not be enacted, that this law will be withdrawn. In case, from our perspective, things go wrong and this law is enacted, then unfortunately there will be consequences for EU-Georgia relationship.
Nedugo nakon naše posjete Gruziji, zakon je konačno usvojen odbacivanjem predsjedničkog veta, te se očekuje da će u augustu stupiti na snagu.
Then I think they will follow the steps adopted by Russian Federation. In Russia, few weeks ago they adopted the law saying that foreign influence agents have no right to participate in elections. So they will label political parties as foreign influence agents. Political parties will be deprived the right to take part in parliamentary elections. It means that this law abolished democracy in Georgia, abolished elections. Georgia becomes a state like Russia, or maybe a state like North Korea, or maybe like a state like Saudi Arabia. Do they have political parties there, opposition? No. It means that Georgia becomes a backyard of Russian Federation. It means that they abolish state. It means that Georgia will never become member of the European Union or NATO. It means that they destroy the future of this country. This is not only about this law. No, it is about the future of this country.
Our media is not going to register, and I know from my colleagues who are working in different media outlets that they are not going to register, because all of us think that we work for Georgia and never ever we have done something for foreign countries, for example for Great Britain or for USA, who are just supporting us with money. That's why we don't need to have this label foreign agent or conductor of foreign influence. And we are not going to register. We are trying to find ways to survive somehow.
The main problem with the law is to mark Georgian citizens and Georgian organizations as foreign. And it's a classic rhetoric of authoritarianism and totalitarianism to find foreigners, to find foreign people and destroy them. So it's a zero-sum game for them. For us is to defend Georgianness and Georgian identity of those organizations. That's why now we think that if they finally adopt the law, of course we will use the legal remedies as well, like European Court of Human Rights. We are already preparing the case for ECHR. Of course, it needs some time, and we also realize that it's not a fast process. We are not ready to register in any public registry. We either prefer to shut down the organizations and close up rather to be marked as foreign agents.
I believe that currently the demand of the protests that we see in the street is unity among the opposition. And I hope that all politicians will heed to the call of the public for unification. And that responsibility, I believe, is to unite, and through a united front and a united effort to go into these key watershed elections, I would say, and safeguard Georgia's European future.
I was born in Soviet Union, and I'm fighting Russians already 40 years. I was 10 when I realized that my country is conquered by Russians, and I started fighting. I was a schoolboy. I'm not scared. They cannot threaten me. It's impossible. Maybe I'm not in the best health condition, but morally I'm very strong. I will continue fighting together with my citizens, with my students. They tried to threaten me, but they failed. I'm on medication, but look, these injuries on my face will disappear one day. But this treason that Georgian Dream conducted will remain in the history. I'm on the right side, I'm on the bright side. I'm fighting for the future of this country, for the future of my kids. They are fighting for what? For Putin? For the Ivanishvili's money? We have values. What are their values?
Ovu i drugi priče Birna Bosne i Hercegovine pratite na našoj web stranici detektor.ba ili na našim društvenim mrežama. Hvala za pažnju.